Jai Baba and welcome. The appointed hour for this long-awaited and much-discussed conference has finally arrived. Thank you all so very much for coming. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces here. All are welcome in His love. Let us remember, first and foremost, that we are here in the spirit of His love and service and a desire to understand more of His ways, His messages, and the history of His advent, and how we can grow closer to Him. And that is the heart of the motivation that brought about this meeting, a desire to bring a greater understanding so that we may move toward greater clarity. As Erich has said, it is the motivation. If it is the motivation to help others, it is the motivation that counts and not the results. The results of this weekend, we leave to Him. He has called us all here for His purposes, and each of us, in our own ways, is striving to understand more of what it means to hold fast to Him in the way that He wishes, and to become more deeply connected to the history of His advent and how we can bring that understanding into our own lives. We are all brothers and sisters in His mighty family, but like any family members, we have our own thoughts and actions and our own unique paths to tread. And like so many family members, we realize love flourishes when we respect each other's boundaries. This meeting has come about to openly discuss and explore several topics related to the functioning of our center, most particularly its bylaws and governance, and to share with the community, for informational purposes, a historical chapter of Baba's advent that many, young, old, and newer members may be unaware of, and whose knowledge might offer one a valuable perspective in going forward. I'd like to give you all a few specifics about the genesis of this meeting, because how it began and where we are now has been quite an evolution. It all began with a proposed bylaw revision, but there were a series of so-called coincidences that shaped the direction that this meeting eventually took. The proposed bylaw states that anybody who has an intermediary to Meher Baba represents a conflict of interest in serving on our board. Some members of our community felt that this revision was exclusionary and was unfairly focused on Sufism reoriented members. Although Sufism reoriented members were the impetus, that was actually not the whole story. As Baba would have it, coincidentally, as the bylaws and policies were being reconsidered, news came from a trust circular in August of 2014 regarding Baba's last warning. It stated that a man who claimed he had been enlightened in the Samadhi and was now calling himself a Sadguru had come to LA and Myrtle Beach looking for followers. This created a stir in some Baba communities and brought up the issue of Baba's last warning for consideration within our community. Throughout his advent, Meher Baba continuously warned all of us to stay away from people who self-profess and claim spiritual status. In his last warning, he declared, "My lovers and workers should never get involved with such persons and affairs." Baba often used the example of how these false gurus would crop up much like mushrooms and roam as wolves among his sheep. As time passes, this warning becomes even more important for us to remember, for all of us to hold fast to Him when the lures of masters and the powers of occult and the promises of higher experiences try to seduce us. We have entered the post-Mandali era, and it is upon us all to understand what it means to hold fast to His Dhamman and to rely solely on Him. With Baba's last warning as a guidepost, the policy committee worked many months to find the wording for a bylaw revision to include all possible intermediaries to Baba as representing a conflict of interest. What followed was a public discussion on Facebook, not only between our membership, but between Baba lovers worldwide regarding this bylaw revision and its assumed focus on Sufism reoriented. It became clear to me from that discussion that there were still many unresolved and misunderstood issues, and the history between these two communities, as well as the meanings of Baba's last warning, were still unsettled. As letters were received by the board regarding this revision and concern among members continued, I felt, as a board member, we needed to respond. I myself knew very little about this history, but I recognized its significance, and I was inspired with the idea to host a meeting about this misunderstood history for the purposes of allowing our members to have an informed vote on the bylaw revision at the special business meeting. I asked Lisa Greenstein to join me in this effort. Unbeknownst to us, there was a website already being created many months before containing the story of this history and related archived documents. Shortly after we began working on this meeting, Clive Adams, who I didn't know, contacted me coincidentally, out of the blue, asking me if I had any documents from Robert Dreyfus's estate regarding his participation in the 1980 Sufi delegation meetings in India for a project that he and his son Erich were working on. Clive knew nothing about what was going on in our community at the time. This was the beginning of a collaboration whose timing only Baba himself could have orchestrated. Since then, this meeting has had a life of its own, with Baba unmistakably being in the driver's seat. None of us could have imagined at the start of this collaboration that this weekend would be the outcome. And today, we are pleased to have the Mayor Legacy Project joining us as part of this conference. The work of the website, as we will learn, offers a significant contribution to the understanding of the history of Baba's advent, of this particular history of Baba's advent. Without their efforts to compile and archive these stories and documents, much of this history may have been lost to future generations. Over the course of this weekend, we will explore and review how Baba, throughout his advent, gave out many circulars and warnings to his lovers, including his last warning in 1968. We will see how the Mandali continued to uphold these warnings after he dropped his body. One such example of that is the Sufi delegation meeting I mentioned earlier that took place in India in October 1980. We will take a look at that in some detail this afternoon. We will also explore throughout this weekend the interwoven history that the Berkeley Baba group has shared with Sufism reoriented over the many decades and its evolution to the present day. Included in this exploration will be stories of those who have had personal experiences as members of Sufism reoriented, as well as with the Mandali regarding these issues. Although these events and stories may seem far in the past to some, my hope is that we will begin to see how this history is crucial for our understanding as we move forward as a community, as well as between the two communities, and how Baba's warnings impact each of us now and in the future. All the presentations this weekend are from personal experiences and/or knowledge of this history. No one presenter's point of view represents a stand for the whole of the Baba community or the Northern California Center. We realize there are many divergent perspectives among us. It is not the goal or the intention of this presentation to arrive at an answer or a conclusion. Each one's beliefs and perceptions will be respected. However we take the information of this conference and apply it in our own lives will always remain between each one and Meher Baba. The issues presented this weekend are not black and white. There is no clear right and wrong. The truths lie somewhere in the shades of gray, and there is enough gray in all of this to keep us busy for the next 700 years till he comes again, believe me. It is the hope of NBCNC and mine that this conference be the beginning of more honest and frank dialogues within our community and possibly with other communities about these issues going forward. I see this conference as a very bold effort, and one we have had no dress rehearsal for. This is raw. I feel proud of NBCNC for taking this step to begin these conversations again after 35 years in hopes of creating clearly defined and healthy boundaries that bring more understanding in our clarity and mutual love for the avatar, as well as respect for the differences in how we approach him. One sign of spiritual health in our community may be the ability to hold very strong differences of opinion while still acknowledging the oneness of the God-man avatar Meher Baba. So I ask that each of you attend this weekend with an open heart and an open mind, as what you hear or learn may have surprising effects beyond what you may have expected. This meeting pleases him, I have no doubt. And I take comfort in that, because no matter the outcome and whatever it looks like, it is all his game, and there really is nothing to fear. Baba has said, all paths are mine, all lead eventually to me. But the shortest way to me is the no path of self-annihilative love. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Before I introduce my co-facilitators, I would like to say, just as a postscript, given the tragic events we've had in the past couple of weeks, that we know that some of our community cannot be here today due to the memorial remembrance for the Choi family. And I'd like to take a moment to send thoughts and prayers out to that family at this time of their immense loss. Thank you. Jai Baba.